Welcome to this deep dive brought to you by Digi-Tech Debates, a segment of Project Plain Talk. Today we're diving into something really fundamental to how we navigate, well, pretty much everything. It's called situational awareness. You might think it's just about, knowing what's going on around you, but there's actually a lot more to it.
That's right. It's definitely more than just a quick look around. Think of it as like constantly building this clear mental picture of all the relevant information.
Okay.
Micah R. Ensley, who's a real expert in this, defines it as maintaining this ongoing awareness, not just of immediate things, but the bigger picture too, like political, cultural, economic context, even military aspects of a situation. It's about having this dynamic understanding of your environment.
Okay, so it's like having this constantly updating, really detailed map inside your head. And it sounds like there are a few key elements to actually making this mental map.
Exactly. Yeah, it basically boils down to perceiving what's happening, understanding what it all means, and then being able to respond effectively. It really starts with sharp observation and analysis that lets you build that understanding. And, well, that understanding then lets you make the right calls when you need to. You'll also hear it described sometimes as a cycle. Observe, orient, decide, and act. Or even simpler, perceive, understand, and predict.
And this isn't just some, abstract idea, is it? It's clearly crucial for actually getting tasks done efficiently, especially when things get complex and are always changing. It relies on some pretty core brain functions, right?
Oh, absolutely. It engages our perception, our memory, how we focus our attention, and what psychologists call executive control, things like planning and problem solving.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is as our world gets more digital, the tasks we do are less about, say, physical strength and more about how we take in, interpret, store, and recall information.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and that's why boosting situational awareness is becoming so important across, well, so many different fields.
The range is pretty incredible, isn't it? I mean, we're talking aviation, power plants, advanced manufacturing, firefighting, IT, the military, healthcare, mining,
Yeah.
even space exploration and oil and gas.
Yeah.
It really touches almost any area where safety and, getting things right are absolutely critical. It's interesting, you think pilots immediately, but even in, say, running a grocery store, having that awareness to anticipate stock levels or customer flow can make a huge difference.
That's a great point. Often overlooked, but vital for efficiency. And what's crucial to get is that situational awareness gives you that up-to-the-minute grasp of the information that matters for what you're doing right now.
Right, the relevant stuff.
Exactly. And this lets you make effective decisions, especially when things get stressful. Think about protecting critical infrastructure like the power grid or industrial plants, military command centers, cybersecurity operations, transportation systems, emergency services. These all need constant 24/7 awareness to spot problems the second they happen.
And the consequences when that awareness fails, they can be really serious. The sources we looked at mentioned that people who maybe have weaker underlying cognitive abilities tend to struggle more in those complex, fast-moving, real-world situations.
It tracks.
And when you add things like poor communication or just making bad assumptions, losing that situational awareness can, have devastating outcomes. It's a pretty stark reminder of how critical this seemingly simple ability really is.
It really is. And it also highlights why non-technical skills are so important. We often focus heavily on the specific technical know-how for a job, right?
Sure.
But things like how we interact with others, our behavior, our cognitive skills, they're just as vital, maybe even more so, in jobs where safety is a big deal. Situational awareness is definitely a cornerstone of those essential non-technical skills.
Now, I noticed the sources made a point of distinguishing between sense-making and situational awareness. Can you unpack that a bit? They sound similar.
Yeah, that's a really important distinction, actually. They both involve understanding, but they approach it differently, especially in terms of time. Sense-making is often more deliberate, conscious, and it tends to look backward.
Okay, like figuring things out after the fact.
Exactly. It's often about trying to understand why something happened, maybe figuring out what went wrong. Situational awareness, though, is much more reflexive. It's fast, it's forward-looking, and it's constantly being updated in real time as things unfold.
Okay.
So think of it this way. Situational awareness is about knowing what's happening right now and what might happen next. Sense-making is more about understanding what already happened.
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Situational awareness feels much more immediate, more proactive. The examples you mentioned, like the airline pilots making mistakes after long breaks, trying to take off with the parking brake on, things like that.
Yeah, or misreading instruments.
Right. Or the helicopter pilots getting lost in fog and hitting something.
Hmm.
That really brings home what happens when that real-time awareness just slips away. It's quite sobering.
It really is. And those examples really highlight why those refamiliarization programs for pilots are so critical after time away.
Hmm.
It's all about getting that automatic, constantly updated awareness back online.
Right. Now, the sources also brought up this idea of predictive situational awareness.
Uh,
That sounds like taking it to the next level.
It absolutely is. Predictive situational awareness is seen as the highest level, really. It's where you're not just understanding the present, but you're actively forecasting how the situation might evolve into the future.
Wow.
And this is where technologies like machine learning and advanced data visualization become incredibly powerful. The goal is to process huge amounts of information so fast that you can almost see potential outcomes before they happen.
So it's about spotting patterns in real-time data to anticipate what could be coming down the line,
Hmm.
which then helps us analyze, predict, and make better decisions.
Precisely.
The military's integrated visual augmentation system, IV8S, that sounds like a direct application, giving soldiers that kind of heads-up display.
Yeah, like something out of science fiction almost.
Right. Providing a massive boost in awareness, movement, targeting, training. Using thermal sensors,
Okay.
it enhances efficiency, coordination, safety.
Yeah.
It's all connected.
Exactly. It's all about looking at the past and the present to paint a clearer picture of the potential future. And this includes not just being aware of current dangers, but also actively evaluating future risks.
Hmm.
And it's a two-way street, you know? Our situational awareness informs the decisions we make, but the need to make decisions also pushes us to seek out and process information, which then shapes our awareness.
So it's a feedback loop.
Mm.
Okay, so if predictive situational awareness is the ultimate goal, how are technologies like AI actually helping us get there? It sounds like our brains are constantly juggling things when we're in complex situations.
That's a good way to put it. We're constantly switching between what psychologists call data-driven processing, reacting to things in our environment, and goal-driven processing, where our current aims direct our attention. Sometimes something we notice, data-driven, can actually make us change our goals. That ability to smoothly shift between these modes is really key for good situational awareness.
Can you give an example?
Sure, like if you're driving along, focused on your route that's goal-driven, but suddenly a ball bounces into the street that's data-driven, your immediate reaction to brake overrides your goal of getting to your destination quickly.
Got it.
Or conversely, if you're actively looking for a specific street sign, that's goal-driven, and you're filtering out lots of other visual noise around you.
So situational awareness isn't just passively absorbing information. It's an active process aimed at achieving a goal within a specific environment. And realistically, we're usually juggling multiple goals,
Right.
and their importance can change any second.
Absolutely. We need to move beyond just reacting. We need to combine different pieces of information, anticipate things, maybe things we haven't even experienced before, and be proactive, goal-driven, not just swept along by events. Understanding that bigger picture before making decisions is so critical, because losing situational awareness, even for a moment, can lead to really serious mistakes, especially when time is tight.
And time itself is a huge factor here, isn't it? Knowing how much time you have before you need to act or before something significant happens, that's a key part of being aware.
Crucial. And because real-world situations are always changing, our situational awareness has to be just as dynamic. It forces us to constantly adjust our thinking, using everything from, well, gut instincts and maybe intuition, to our more deliberate cognitive processes to keep our understanding accurate.
It's like having that wide-angle view of the overall situation,
Hmm.
but also being able to zoom right in on the important details when needed. But given that our working memory and attention spans have limits, prioritizing information must be incredibly important, especially when we're getting bombarded with cues.
Exactly right. We take in information, piece it together, compare it to our goals, try to figure out what might happen next, and all of this heavily relies on our short-term or working memory. And for us to recognize patterns and make sense of it all, that information eventually has to move from our immediate sensory input into our longer-term memory stores.
It's interesting how these ideas link back to the psychology of attention. It feels like people have been grappling with these concepts for a long time, even if the terminology changes.
Definitely. And it's a good reminder that some of these mental concepts, like attention, can be a bit, well, fuzzy sometimes. It's important to keep that in mind when we build models and theories about how our minds work.